Welcome back everybody to another episode of our weekly Moto News Roundup, where this week we've got another KTM 490 spotted out testing, a possible new line of bikes from Yamaha, the latest news about their V4 engine, some insight into Aprilia's MotoGP plans, a potential zippy new CF Moto, more on Enfield 750 Himalayan, some developments at Norton to prepare for their big announcements this autumn, and we'll round off with a look at Honda's new tool that allows you to sort of visualize your dream custom GB350S. But let's kick off with those new spy shots of a possible new KTM that appears to show another bike in their expected 490 lineup that follows on from the other spy shots we looked at last week of a 490 Adventure and 490 Duke. This one though, well, it's a sports bike, so presumably it'd be called the 490 RC, and it'd be set to replace the existing single-cylinder powered 390 RC. Thing is though, on top of the new engine, the thing that's most interesting about this bike is the chassis, which actually shows a single-sided swing arm. It's not a particularly common feature at this kind of capacity and also this kind of price point, and so it might have you thinking, well, there's not going to be any other bike like it. Well, if you put it side by side with CF Moto's 450 SRS, you'll certainly start to notice some similarities, and not just the swing arm. The wheels, the frame, the general stance and proportions of it are almost entirely exactly the same, and so it looks like this new bike from KTM will be a rebadged, tweaked version of that CF Moto 450. Now, naturally, it does get KTM's signature styling, complete with aero wings. There's WP suspension as opposed to Showa, with WP being their own in-house brand. Tech as well, you can see the switchgear layout is the same as some of the other 390s, I think, and 790s, and presumably you get the same TFT dash to match. Other than that though, all of the underpinnings will be very similar to the CF Moto, so expect about 46 horsepower peak and around 180 kilograms of weight. Personally, I think it looks pretty decent, and I really enjoyed the CF Moto 450 engine, at least in the 450 MT adventure bike. But as always, I'd love to know what you think of this one down in the comments. Now next up, Yamaha appear to be preparing a whole new line of bikes, but it also seems like nobody has a real indication of exactly what they'll be. WeBike Japan report that in 2024, Yamaha registered the RW prefix with a whole bunch of different capacities with the European IP office. This suggests it could be used on a few different engines, with some of them already appearing in the Yamaha portfolio, ranging from their 125 single up to the 700 of their CP2 parallel twin. More recently though, there is a bit more of an indication as to what this RW line of bikes could be, because WeBike also picked up on another trademark application earlier this month, and this time it was the name RW700 Explore, and also it came with a new logo. This is interesting for a couple of reasons. I mean, firstly, the fact that it's got a logo, that would suggest this bike is fairly far along in terms of its development, but then also the style of the logo, which looks fairly rugged, let's say, and also the Explore sub-brand they've paired it with, which was most recently used in the Tenere 700 lineup. It's now discontinued the Tenere 700 Explore, but it was a more touring-friendly version of the existing T7 with a slightly lower suspension setup, for example, and also the side racks for either soft or hard luggage included as standard. So yeah, I'd expect something off-roady, maybe slightly distance-focused, but beyond that, there's not a great deal to go off, and so I'd love to know what you think this bike could be down in the comments below. Like I say though, with the logo already being trademarked, perhaps this is one to keep an eye out for at EICMA in November, when a lot of next year's new bikes are due to be announced. On top of that though, there's also another big development on the horizon from Yamaha as they look to improve their performance in MotoGP with a new V4 engine. Now, we've known about this one for quite some time as well, but they've just announced that it will be making its racing debut in September, with Yamaha Motor Racing Managing Director Paolo Pavesio saying, "I have some important news to share. For Mazzano, we're targeting to see Augusto Fernandez racing our new M1 prototype with the V4 engine for the very first time. This is an excellent preview and concrete sign of our commitment to the future, while we continue to push with determination to get the best out of every race weekend. So, huge news for Yamaha, but does that mean they'll soon catch up to the rest of the V4 powered pack in terms of results? Well, perhaps, but Aprilia also appear to be working on some super advanced aero to make that even more difficult. Cycle World report on these patents, which show a large plate on the side of the swing arm which covers a good share of the rear wheel, even bigger than that on their current 2025 MotoGP bike, and also with some extra appendages on the underside of the swing arm. Now, not only do these help to reduce drag, but they say also create extra downforce when the bike is at lean. Crazy stuff when you get into this level of aerodynamic design, but also they show another feature which leaves more space under the seat unit of the bike, and that's said to open up to suck more air from under the belly of the bike, and this one is said to create more downforce and therefore more stability. Now, normally you wouldn't give away all your secrets like this by filing publicly available patents, but Cycle World do go on to speculate that they're prepping another super premium race replica, having recently trademarked the name XGP, and so perhaps some of these aerodynamic features will actually be on a consumer-facing bike soon. Don't expect it to be cheap though. The last one that they produced in 2024, the RSV4 X Extrema, well, that one was an eye-watering 80,000 euros. So if CF Moto are more your sort of budget, then there could be something new on the horizon, with some interesting looking patents for an electric sports bike also recently picked up by Cycle World. Now, it is a bike that looks somewhat like the 450 SR that we just looked at, but really the patent kind of centers around the frame and battery packaging, which looks a little bit innovative with this kind of aluminium construction to the frame. That, of course, gives you the majority of the bike's structure, but they've left plenty of space for two rather large batteries. The motor's tucked away down the back near the swing arm pivot, but the key thing is they've left a little bit of a gap between those two batteries, and also when they're bolted in, it'll become watertight so they can fill that gap with coolant. They've even put fins on the inside of the batteries to improve cooling efficiency, although you might ask why they didn't just leave an air gap and then allow it to be air-cooled through the middle. After all, that's something I recently saw at ABR Festival with Royal Enfield's prototype of an electric Himalayan. Well, thing is, it says in the article that the intention is to use fast charging, and that's actually where the batteries need the most cooling, and you wouldn't get much airflow when the bike stood still and charging up. A few weeks back, we reported on the new 750 twin-powered Himalayan, one of the most anticipated new Enfields in recent memory, which we first saw in some spy shots, but then also Royal Enfield followed up with their own pictures of the bike being tested, which they posted on their own Instagram. So this one's absolutely nailed on, and it looks like it should make for a great affordable adventure tourer with their signature retro-inspired styling and what looks like a decent chassis too. Thing is though, the first bike to be spied was a little bit more off-road biased looking with spoke wheels and semi-knobbly tyres, but Visordown report on some new spy shots that appear to show a slightly more road-friendly version also being tested. Now, this is super common for adventure bikes to be available in two levels of spec, one more off-road biased, one more road biased, be that through, properly separate models like the Tiger 900 GT versus the Tiger 900 Rally, or with other manufacturers, sometimes you can just change the wheels as an accessory like BMW or Ducati. So yeah, interesting to see that Royal Enfield are preparing something similar for this bike. It's going to be a big seller, so they can probably afford to offer multiple variants, although otherwise it does look pretty similar to the first bike that we've seen. There doesn't appear to be a great deal of difference in terms of the stance of it or the way it's accessorized or the bodywork. Still very much looking forward to seeing how this one comes out, presumably this autumn as well, judging by the fact that this test bike also looks pretty far along. One of the other hotly anticipated new bikes, or lines of bikes though, is from Norton, with not only a refresh to their top-level V4 powered sports bike, but also a new range of smaller 450 twins which are intended to target Asian markets. Certainly they've been very open about their plans to get those launched this year, but it looks like, according to this article on MoreBike, that they're structuring the company as well in the optimal way to start delivering them. You see, Norton's Indian owners, TVS, have just set up a new company in their home market called Norton Motorcycle Private Limited. Now, no specifics are given in the article or in any of the information that they've received as to what will be built, where and how, but it's assumed TVS have done this to open up a whole range of supply chain and manufacturing and distribution possibilities. And so maybe we should expect Norton to start to get pretty big pretty quickly. Next up though, have you ever wanted to create a custom GB350S but not known where to start? Perhaps you don't have the Photoshop skills to mock it up? Well, maybe Honda have anticipated that fact because they've just fairly quietly launched a new tool on their website that allows you to visualize your own wacky designs with just a few taps. It's called Honda Dream Garage, and you can actually choose between the 350 or a CB500. But in my opinion, the 350 is by far and away the more customizable bike. And so yeah, that's the one I was playing with. You can basically swipe through a whole bunch of different colors and patterns for almost every paintable part of the bike, and then you can preview it with different effects and different backgrounds before exporting it to share either over email or through social media. Now, from my experience of having a look at it, it's very easy to come up with something that just looks like a clown bike. It's a little bit more tricky to come up with something genuinely tasteful, but if you fancy having a go, I'll stick a link to it down in the comments below, and if you want to send in any of your attempts, email them to contact@motobob.cc. And in the next episode, we'll look at some of the best and some of the worst of your contributions. As always though, I'd love to know what you think of the rest of the stories this week, so do let me know down in the comments below. And if you missed any of our videos from the last 7 days, then I'll put a playlist on the screen now so you can catch up. We've got a review of the brilliant Aprilia 20660 factory, and also some of my suggestions for the best sounding bikes from each of the manufacturers in 2025. Do hit subscribe for more of the latest motorcycle news and reviews like this right here on MotoBob. And massive thanks for watching this one, and hopefully catch you in the next video.